What is up, everybody? My name is Kyle Matovcik. I am the host of the In Liberty and Health podcast, where we talk all things liberty, health, and wellness, and beyond. My hope is to encourage and spread the message of liberty and physical and mental well-being. I hope you enjoy all the topics we talk about with our guests. We're on all major streaming platforms, so please sit back, relax, and enjoy.
Man, I'm doing as good as anyone can do getting buried by his 13-year-old son on leg day.
I'm not going to apologize for not being on this podcast because I got to go see Metallica. So if that's a problem, kiss my ass.
Okay?
All right.
There it is. This is his third time on the show and his first time by himself. I talk to this dude all the freaking time. Pat, what's going on, dude?
Hey, Kyle. How's it going, man?
Excellent. I'm excited to finally do this. We shoot the shit all the time and just haven't got a chance to finally do it one-on-one. So I'm glad to finally have you on. I noticed you're wearing your Pig Destroyer shirt. I'm not that familiar with Pig Destroyer, but I know they're kind of in the same wheelhouse, a lot of stuff we kind of typically listen to.
Oh, yeah. Pig Destroyer is one of my favorite bands.
Okay. What the hell was I listening? Somebody, who thought I replied to on Twitter? I replied to somebody. I think it was Forest Mommy, and somebody that follows her was in a metal band, and yeah, he sent me his band. They were actually really good. God, I wish I could remember what the fuck they were called, because they were kind of like a newer metal band. I don't want to say like a gent, but like, I don't know how to describe, but they were really good. I don't know if like, you know, like who Northlane is. They kind of remind me of them a little bit. Northlane or like Phineas.
No, I mean, I have to warn you that in my younger days, I was quite the metal snob.
No, dude, don't worry, me too. Listen, I used to go into hour-long fights with people in middle school about why like Miley Cyrus sucks and why I hate A Day to Remember. Dude, I would just be destroying people. That was my whole fucking childhood, was being a metal elitist.
Well, it was so funny too, because like I still remember when I got into Black Dahlia Murder for the first time, and of course that's kind of been in the news because Trevor Sternad took his own life last week, and I remember my friend Josh had a Nocturnal t-shirt, and just from the way that the lettering was styled, I automatically writ them off as like a deathcore band.
Yeah.
And of course I was a snob at the time. Now I just don't give a shit really, but I was like, yeah, I don't know about them, you know, but then I checked out Nocturnal, and it was, I still, like, I don't remember the first time I listened to it, but I remember the way I felt the first time I listened to it.
Yeah, I think that's the most important thing for like most music that you hear. I remember listening to like Corrosion of Conformity for the first time. I know that's like in a way separate realm, but like I heard Albatross, I'm like, oh my God, just like the groove and the very end where it's just this loud, you know, ripping kind of classic rock style solo with these sludgy stoner metal riffs. It just never leaves my mind. That's one of those songs that, like, you know, the first nice day of the year you get to roll down the windows. Well, I don't know if you could necessarily relate to this, but here in Pennsylvania, when you just went through like 6 months of winter and then finally
I live in Wisconsin, so I know exactly what
I don't know why I was thinking about Texas. I must have been thinking about somebody else, but yeah, okay, so you know, then you get a whole shitload of months of winter, and then finally it's like 60 degrees. And you put down the windows, and it's like, oh my God, it's beautiful outside. Yeah. You know exactly what I mean.
It's a good feeling.
Yeah, yeah. So what kind of shit were you into when you were younger? Because I think you said you were like cutting grass, listening to Lamb of God. And but the first show I ever went to, I loved Lamb of God. I loved Guar. So the first concert I ever went to, I was 15 years old, and my mom's boyfriend took me to go see Job for a Cowboy, Guar, and Lamb of God. And it was so memorable. I remember being 15 years old and just feeling the bass in my chest outside the venue, and there was nothing like it. From there, I was hooked.
Well, one of my favorite feelings in the world is like the suck of the double bass kick when you're like in the front row.
Yes.
Yeah, it's so I've been a metalhead all my life. Like my mom introduced me to Judas Priest when I was probably too young to be listening to it.
Oh, no way.
So maybe when I was like 5 or 6 years old, And I mean, I was always into like AC/DC and stuff like that. And I remember in young middle school, my dad got me into like Metallica and stuff. But you know, having like the kind of the new wave of British heavy metal, like I always listened to Iron Maiden and Judas Priest and stuff growing up. And I remember in middle school, like I bought I there was one visit to Best Buy where I got Ashes of the Wake. I got Under Oath's Define the Great Line and They're Only Chasing Safety, and I got Slayer's Christ Illusion, and Lamb of God's, I think I said that one already.
Yeah,
Ashes and Sacrament in the same trip, and that was really a defining. And Burn the Priest, I got that album too.
Yeah.
But I like all through middle school, I worked landscaping for my dad. And so all summer long, I would just sit on the lawnmower and listen to metal. And when I first listened to harsh vocals, it really kind of scared me. And I played in a band at the time. I mean, just kind of not serious stuff. But yeah, I mean, ever since then, I've just been immersed in this kind of stuff. And it's a huge part of my life and who I am. And in Trevor Sternad specifically, like I was a creative writing major in undergrad. And his lyrics, especially on Unhallowed, really influenced me. And he was like someone I looked up to personally as an artist. And it just really, really sucked and was a real bummer to see that he had taken his own life.
Yeah, dude, that is tragic. Well, you know what? I saw Black Dahlia Murder once, and it was at Stage A, which is like the big venue down here in Pittsburgh. And I can't remember who the hell they were with. I think it might have been the Metalocalypse tour. So it was
really,
I want to say it was okay. So it was them, All That Remains, Machine Head, and Death Clock. And so you were talking about kind of writing off Nocturnal earlier. And I kind of did the same thing with All That Remains, funny enough, because all my friends were into All That Remains. I'm like, I know they're like way too heavy for me. I don't like them. And then like I gave them a chance. I want to say shortly after For We Are Many came out, which was like 2011, and I absolutely love them. And now, you know, literally just before we hopped on here, Phil Labonte retweeted me, which is like just fucking nuts to me. But to go back to Black Dahlia Murder, I never really got into them, but he sang on Trevor on a Soulfly song called what the fuck is it called? Not Enslaved. It was on that album Enslaved that came out in, I think it was 2013. World Scum. And that song just, I remember when I first heard that song and specifically his parts in it, it's just like this face ripping fucking death metal that was just, you feel it in your bones. And the first time I heard that song, I'm like, oh my God, this is so freaking good.
He did a lot of guest spots, and my understanding, I mean, he did the obituarist column on, I don't know if it was Metal Injection or if it was another outlet, but my understanding is that he really wanted to be, you know, joining other people's projects to try to promote them and to bring up the scene as much as he could himself.
Wow.
And yeah, just it sucks. There's no way around it.
Yeah, that guy for me was Dime, and obviously I was 10 years old when Dime was killed, but just watching like the Vulgar Home videos and reading his biography and everything, you like understand who he was, and then watching the videos of him doing shots with everybody and just like seeing the way Pantera was, that was people throw rocks my way over here and there for saying this, but I do believe Pantera was the best band to walk the earth, just because like the legacy and the energy that they brought, it was second to none, especially in the 90s when it was popular to be heavy, and they just ruled. And then especially, what was it, Far Beyond Driven in '93 topped the charts for like months on end, and that wasn't like it was a soft record. I mean, that was heavy as fuck. Use My Third Arm, Strength Beyond Strength, Throws of Rejection, like those songs were heavy as fuck, and it was chart topping.
Yeah I never got into Pantera very much, so I don't know what it is exactly, if but the, you know, because they were always like that kind of that southern groove, right?
Yeah.
And I mean, would you put Lamb of God as being like a direct descendant of that kind of style?
Sure. Yeah.
And I mean, for me, like, I don't know, there's this fascination that I have with the way that metal makes you feel. Like,
Yeah.
I took a rock history class as a throwaway elective in college, and I remember getting really mad when he said that Arch Enemy was death metal. That really made me angry. And like I remember like nerding out, and there was this like normal girl like sitting next to me, and I was just getting pissed, and she was like thinking I was really weird or something.
Yeah, well, it's like you said, there's a feeling to it, and like I just don't think people understand unless you love metal like the way that you, me, or Tommy, Tommy does. You can't explain it to people. Like so today I was like my deadlifting day, right? It was all my pulling motions, and I cannot listen to Brad Paisley or Luke Bryan or Waka Flocka and pull 405, right? But I was listening to Havoc, I was listening to Revocation, Warbringer, and I feel like I'm missing one here that I had in the playlist. But regardless, real heavy shit and thrash yourself, because I've been kind of getting into that. Tommy had me and Dave Sanchez and a couple other people on his show to talk about like the music industry and COVID. And ever since then, I've been hooked on Havoc. They are so freaking good. I'm like so disappointed I didn't start listening to them sooner.
I saw them for the first time in like 2014, I think, because they have like a Face Ripper T-shirt that's like the Tar Man from Return of the Living Dead. And, and I have that. I've had that cut off, and I bought it at their show, and I've had it for like 10 years. Havoc is a great band, and in Revocation is really good too, because like I really admire David Davidson. Like I don't know if he went to Juilliard or something, but the deep tracks, because I'm a guy who gets into deep tracks, and on Deathless, the deep tracks in that have a lot of really jazzy solos that really touch you in like a very deep place. It's really good shit. Like I collect vinyl too, and so I had to get that one on vinyl. And, when it came in, I was a really happy guy.
Yeah, you know what? I remember seeing them, and I talked to him briefly. I think they opened for Guar back in 2011, 2012. And I asked him what kind of guitar he's playing, because I still wasn't that knowledgeable at the time. And I remember them playing Dismantled Dictators, and I hadn't heard of them before that, but that song always like stuck with me. And I finally checked them out a couple of years later, and like their first album was insanely good. Second album was crazy good. Third album, like Harlot, No Funeral, where they have all these like super melodic solos. That dude's just so freaking good. And the thing that like I hate them in a way, because like he plays riffs that I can't play regularly, but he sings and plays. Like that dude is so ridiculously talented. But yeah, they're fucking amazing too. So yeah, I've seen them once. I've seen Guar. I think
froze up on me here.
Oh god damn it. Let's see. It'll bring me back here in a second.
Somebody's going to have some video editing to do, which is not going to be a lot of fun.
Oh my god, yeah. My back. Yeah, dude, I keep saying I'm going to strangle the next Comcast guy that I see.
No worries, man.
Yeah. I saw Revocation once. I saw Chimera at Mr. Smalls, which was like a small venue, but they would always pack it in there. But yeah, seeing Guar there was like awesome, because they would sell it out every single time. And it's a real small venue, so as soon as they come up, you're packed in and you're getting fake blood all over you. It's like, if you tell normal people this, they would think you're fucking insane, but there's just something else about being at a Guar concert that's just like otherworldly, and it's like a brotherly love kind of thing. I don't know, I always loved it. I remember, I think it was the second time I seen them, and it was Obama and I think Mitt Romney that they had waltz out on stage. They have these enormous necks, and then Odorous came out with a sword and held it up to Obama's neck, that held up to Mitt Romney's, and he fucking sliced their heads off and started spraying blood everywhere. The most memorable like experiences ever. They had Lady Gaga come out dressed up as a toilet, and her tits were made out of shit. And they ripped them off and was squirting blood everywhere. Yeah, it's awesome, man.
Yeah.
I
think one of the best concerts that I went to was Napalm Death did the Amsterdam in St. Paul. And we were front row, and it was a really intimate venue. And it was just incredible. I've seen Napalm Death a couple times. They're one of my favorite bands too.
Mhm.
Like when I was in law school, I got into like a really big grindcore kind of phase.
Ooh,
And
okay, yeah.
I go through a lot of phases, and like I don't phase out of them. They stick with me.
Yeah.
And so that way I just kind of add to my whole palette throughout my life.
Yeah.
And yeah, I went through a big grind phase, and it helps that Napalm is like pretty anti-war. I mean, they're pretty left, you know, which is
Yeah.
what you get. Grind is like
All right.
grind is really kind of the meeting of death metal and hardcore.
Mhm.
And so just for the audience, but yeah, so like Pig Destroyer and Napalm are my two of my favorite grind bands, and both of them, they just kick ass. I haven't seen Pig Destroyer in concert, but yeah, Napalm is just great.
Do you know Misery Index?
I do, yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
I remember hearing Carrion Call, and this could tell you how long ago this was, back on like the music choice channels on I think it was Comcast or Dish.
Was it VH1?
And it was the heavy metal channel, and I remember hearing Carrion Call. I'm like, oh my god! I think it was like the verse, and it goes to like this crazy fucking blast beat, and I'm like, this is fucking badass. And that whole album, I think it was Heirs to Thievery, front to back, just fucking killer, and all their newer stuff too is really good. So yeah, I haven't listened to them in a little bit, but yeah, I definitely feel what you're saying when you say you kind of like go in moods. So I was in like a real metalcore mood a couple weeks ago, listening to like Trivium and some of like the older stuff I used to listen to a lot, like a lot of that early 2000s new wave American heavy metal kind of stuff. And now, like I said, I'm listening to way more thrashy stuff. And I've always loved Revocation, but now I'm like sprinkling in Evil again.
Yeah, I remember them.
Yeah. Revocation, Havoc, Warbringer, stuff like that. So that's kind of where I'm at.
If you went into like a metalcore phase, like I gotta talk, my absolute adoration for Killswitch Engage, like that band, like especially the Howard Jones era,
Yes,
really is very special to me. Like those As Daylight Dies, that was also something I got into in middle school.
Yeah.
Yeah, just in the End of Heartache. Those two albums to me are just perfect. And especially when Howard Jones would sing the songs from Jesse's era, from the earlier stuff.
Fixation on the Darkness. Oh my god.
There's that Set This World Ablaze DVD where they did a show in Boston. And that is it, like they got the sound just right because the whole thing crunches.
Yep.
And Killswitch sounds heavier in that album than they actually are. So yeah, great. And Howard's cleans on that are really good.
Yeah, so I remember getting the limited edition of As Daylight Dies. They just put Walmart up in Natrona Heights, which is a small town that I grew up in, and I just used to walk everywhere. So I think I got a pomegranate Arnold Palmer tea, and it tasted like shit, but I got the limited, or like the special edition of As Daylight Dies, which had Holy Diver on it, Fire Burns, and like a couple other B-side tracks that were fucking amazing. And that was one of those songs that kind of shaped my musical taste. So it was like that, Ascendancy by Trivium, obviously like The Fall of Ideals and Overcome by All That Remains. This Darkened Heart was really good too. Sacrament, Wrath, and Ash to the Wake by Lamb of God. A lot of the stuff by God Forbid was phenomenal. Shadows Fall, all that stuff. That was like my whole childhood, like middle school up until high school. And obviously like Pantera is my favorite band, but obviously everything for Pantera as well. And then honestly, I've always liked the all Metallica stuff too, and Scott Horton blocked me at one point, and he unblocked me, thank God.
I thought that was so funny. I felt bad that you were blocked, but it made me laugh a lot.
Yeah, that was kind of funny. But yeah, no, I love all Metallica, even all their newer stuff, even Load and Reload, just because I'm a big blues guy too. So like Gary Moore, Melvin Taylor, Albert King, B.B. King, I love all those guys. But like the slower stuff from Load and Reload, I thought was really good. Although most people would like hang me if I tell them that.
Okay, so I guess my guilty pleasure along those lines is that I like Volbeat.
Oh, I love Volbeat. I've seen them 3 or 4 times.
I saw, because my dad and I my dad is someone who like he's very eclectic in what he likes, and it seems like, you know, he doesn't get into the harder and heavier stuff with me very much, but it's like if I can find something that we both like, I really enjoy that, because it's hard to find those things. And growing up listening to Metallica when he would drive me around, you know, as a kid. But then when I got older, Volbeat too, and that was something that he liked, and something, you know, as an elitist, I was a little bit like, all right, okay. But I mean, the Volbeat guys, they are like real metalheads. I mean, they had a song featured with Rob Halford and a song featured with King Diamond.
Yeah.
And so it's like, you know, I can't get mad at that. It's like, you don't take it too seriously. You don't take yourself too seriously.
Yeah, well, their singer, I think, was talking about starting up like a black metal side project or something like that. Yeah, yeah. And people may rip on like Creed. So I don't know if you're familiar with Tremonti's solo albums.
I don't think so, no.
Oh my God. The guitar player from Creed and Alter Bridge. I fucking love Alter Bridge because I think Miles Kennedy is a fantastic singer, and I get why people don't like him. But honestly, I could not recommend people who like heavier music. Check out Tremonti. He played guitar for Creed and Alter Bridge, but he sings and plays on all his solo albums, and they're actually kind of like heavy. Now he's not like screaming or anything like that, but I mean, he loves Revocation. You name like the death metal band, he loves them, and that dude can fucking play excellent. So yeah, definitely check them out. Their first album came out in 2009, I want to say, and the one song was called "Wish You Well," and it's like super thrashy, but it's really cool. He has a really unique voice, and just he's crazy good guitar player too. Yeah, so, and it's funny, like you could listen to all his albums, like all his solo albums, and then you listen to Creed, it's like, holy fuck, it's the same guy playing guitar in both of them. Like, it would blow your mind. Cool. Yeah, but he's so freaking good, and I feel like he's like the hidden treasure of like the metal world. It's like people who know him know like this dude's fucking good. But like if you tell somebody, hey, I want you to listen to the guitar player from Creed, they'd be like, what the fuck are you talking about? But once you dig in, it's really freaking good.
I should have brought my battle vest down with me, because there's a lot of blood into that thing. And, I've taken its place. Like I took it to Germany with me to a bunch of festivals.
You actually went to Germany for like, no shit.
Well, I didn't go to Wacken, but I went to, there was a, I have the poster here. I don't know how it would work to take my camera, but I have the poster here from the festival. It was called Geiselwind Out and Loud Festival, which I tried to explain to my German friends that a festival in the United States called Out and Loud would probably be mistaken for like some gay rally or something like that. I was like, Out and Loud, huh? That sounds like a gay pride kind of thing. But
yeah,
but no, I mean, yeah. So yeah, it was. I spent 5 months in Germany and in college, and it was awesome. But
wow.
I had started a podcast, Kyle, called Sonic Insurgency, and because I love, like, I could riff off metal the same way that I do libertarianism, you know, and I just didn't, you know, there's only 24 hours in a day, so I don't I kind of let it fall by the wayside a little bit.
Yeah, well, I guess my goal with this podcast is just to literally do anything I fucking want to do. Like, I know it's entitled Liberty and Health, but you know, goddamn, if I'm not going to talk about what the fuck I want to talk about, I don't want to be restricted. So I'll, you know, I literally did an episode on automotive basics just because that's something that, you know, obviously I'm well versed in, and I feel like it's probably good for people to know that. So, you know, man, I'm here to put out information and try to help people and just shoot the shit with cool people.
Yeah, well, I'm gonna have to watch that because, you know, my dad is one of those old school, like, can fix anything kind of guys. He was he wore so many hats, man. And in a lot of ways, I mean, of course, in many ways, he's my hero, because like dad could do anything, you know, he still can. And like he was a firefighter for a long time. He was an EMS driver, so like a paramedic too.
Oh, no way. Okay.
Yeah. And he was also a transmission specialist. So
wow,
it's like all these different hats. Yeah, but it's not like and I feel bad, you know, because I'm his only son. I have a sister, but I'm his only son. And I took more after my mom than I did him. And so I never learned how to work on cars because I just didn't have the aptitude, you know, or the natural inquisitive nature.
Yeah, so my family's been fixing cars for probably over 100 years. I mean, literally, my great grandfather did it, his son did it, which is my grandfather. My dad does it. My dad's owns a shop for like 20 years now, and I think you can relate to this. And I mean, you have kids now, so I mean, it's probably more on you. But like, I look at my dad, and he's incredibly successful as a independent business owner. And like you said, dad could fix anything, and I still look up to him as my hero. And like, he could just, if I ever have questions, I always ask him, and if I ever need anything, he's always there, and I think that's awesome.
Yeah.
Do you ever feel like insignificant?
I
like
think you
look
paused out again. We might have this issue. Oh, there you go. You're back.
Yeah, yeah, dude. This internet's terrible. I don't know. I'm gonna have to figure something out. But do you ever look up to your dad and kind of think like, could I do that? Like, will I ever be that guy? Like, and especially like I said, you have kids, so are you ever scared that like I won't be the same man my dad was to me as for my kids?
Yeah, I mean, I kind of worry about it. Like, but at the same time, I know that I will never be like my dad. Which hurts in a way, but we're just, you know, it's like in a lot of ways we're so similar, but in a lot of important ways we're not.
Sure.
And it's like, you know, you try to chase after those things that you are similar at, but life happens so fast, and then you wish you would have done things differently. Like if I could go back in time, I would have put more effort into trying to learn things, you know. But there's always things going on that kind of I don't want to say get in the way of that, but make it, you know, more difficult than just saying willing something to happen, you know. But I really take after my mom a lot, like just in terms of being kind of more of an intellectual and less of like a handy practical person. So, and my dad was always the more practical, even in the way he thinks about things and in the way he approaches problems. And I really admire that. And I think I try to emulate it. Like I can do basic woodworking things, and I reload my own ammunition. And so in a lot of ways, I take on some of those things, but I know I'll never be a mechanic or, you know, be able to wire my own, I don't know. I need to finish my studio, but you know what I mean? Like, so we do stuff together still. Yeah. But I mean, whenever it's something involved, like we're putting in a new bathroom in the basement, and for the more involved stuff like that, it's like, I know I'll never do it.
Yeah. Well, for me, I kind of know what I'm good at and I know what I'm not. My mom and dad split up when I was about 5 years old. So as I gotten older, I lived with my mom all throughout my life. So now as I get older, I don't want to say like my mom's jealous I spend a lot of time with my dad, but it's like we didn't really get to see him a lot growing up, and I still don't get to see him much because I'm so freaking busy all the time. But I just like spending time with him just because I don't, you know, don't really have that same time. And I know he feels him and my grandfather had a rough relationship, and I think he kind of wants to make sure that like, hey, when I leave, whenever I pass away, I just want to make sure that my kids know that I love them and care about them. And I don't know, I look at my dad as such like a rock, and I try to emulate that too, as in being a very stable, calm person who's able to handle problems in a very, very good fashion. And even when I worked for my dad as a tech, because he owns a shop, and I would fuck stuff up, he was still really good about just calm. And if there was something like bad enough, he'd be like, okay, well, I can't look at that right now. I need to do something else for the time being. And like I was kind of asking you, I kind of look at that and I'm like, will I always be able to kind of keep that cool?
Well, one of my biggest failings as a parent so far is that I'm not very patient. And I mean, believe it or not, I guess people don't see this side of me on my show, but like I get upset about things, and I don't have like a whole lot of control over my emotions and coping skills and things like that.
Sure.
And you know, I'm not like some kind of maniac or something, but it's like, you know, I've noticed things about myself as just like, oh, it'd be really nice if I could just chill for a second. but instead, you know, I'll work really hard at, you know, like I started my own business, so I'll work really hard at that, and things will be stressful, and I'll just kind of bottle it up until I just kind of let go. And so I wish that I had more patience with the kids, and you know, it's not like the way that I act or the way that I handle things is abnormal, because all parents go through some kind of thing where they're not good at something, you know. And I think if you're a good parent, you recognize that, and you wish you were better or try to work on it too. When it comes to my son, you know, I wish that I spent less time being preoccupied with social media or with what's going on in the world. And I think it's really important with your kids to have a period of time where you just put your phone away, like lock it up in the bedside table and get down there and start playing Legos or something, you know, like. And so what I've been trying to do is notice, and I have a bad attention span. Like, I don't know if I have ADD or something. It's been rocket fuel for me in ways, because it's allowed me to really obsess over ideas and you know, the law and these abstract concepts, and get into books and stuff. But practically speaking, it means that I get bored and distracted really easily when my kids are there. And it's like, I got to find something that piques my interest that we can do together. So for my son's 3rd birthday, I bought him, I've been getting into Hot Wheels. So I've been buying him Hot Wheels cars because I think it's cool. I like collecting. And I bought him a Hot Wheels track, one with the spinner on it. And so it shoots them down the track. And so like, I've just been trying to bond with him in those ways, and you know, pay more attention to that relationship, because, you know, when you're a guy and your kids are young, it's like, what do you do with them? You know, you can only look at picture books for so long, and it's just boring.
Yeah, I got you. Well, kind of, and you could once again tell me, because you have more experience in this area. Obviously, my fiance and I are getting married in November, and we plan to have kids shortly after. But I feel like you kind of have to realize your weaknesses and strengths in a relationship. So, like for Sarah and I, she's a little bit of a hothead, right? And actually, over the last 4 years that we've been together, she's gotten a lot better. Like, she used to be a lot angrier, but she still gets angry every here and there. But usually, if she's angry now, it's like, okay, well, she was kind of right to be pissed off. And I don't necessarily agree with the way that she always handles it, but she handles it well regardless. Like, it used to be she was throwing shit, but and she never hit me. She never did. It sounds like I'm you know, right? But she just had a temper, right? I'm a very, very calm person. I'm very patient. You know, it takes a lot for me to get angry. I honestly don't think in the 4 years we've been dating, I don't think she's ever seen me like legitimately pissed off. So that's kind of where we have our ebbs and flows, right? She's a hothead. I'm calmer. She comes to me whenever she needs something a little bit more delicate and, you know, time consuming handled. You know, she's better at doing stuff around the house. There's certain things that she has strengths in, certain things that have weaknesses. And do you feel like it's kind of the same way when you parent?
In terms of like parenting with your significant other?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it is. I mean, naturally my wife is a nurturer, you know, and she's a lot more patient than I am. But you know, she cares and sweats about a lot of the small stuff. And that's important, because you need someone to do that. Whereas I'm a stereotypical guy. I'm like, oh, they're fine, you know, just rub some dirt on it. It doesn't bother me if the kid is, you know, if our son is crying and crying and crying, because like at 9 or 10 months old, you need to sleep train them, which you can't just, like when they're younger than 9 months old, you can't just let them cry all night long, because they will. But when they get 9 or 10 months old, you know, you can go in and they should be sleeping through the night. So you can just kind of, you know, rub their back and say, oh, it's okay, buddy, you know. But when you break them and train them to sleep train, you have to let them cry for the first time. And it really bothers my wife, because she's like, oh, he's in there, he's really sad, he's just wondering why he's crying and no one's coming to help him. And I'm like, you know what, he needs to learn how to be, you know, self-soothing. let's just let them, it doesn't bother. I can roll over and go back to sleep, whatever. So I don't know if that really answers your question, but yeah, of course. I mean, you learn how to teamwork, and like I'll readily admit that I'm not an easy person to be in a relationship with. I've experienced this in my life where the world revolves around me in a lot of ways, and I'm selfish like that, and I try and work on it, but I know it's a fault of mine. Whereas I'm always so much in my own head that I forget the world exists, and that's hard for a spouse to deal with. And so I know that that's an issue, and I think it's probably the same way with kids, with parenting. And in some ways, like I think it's kind of necessary because I'm the breadwinner and I have all these things going on, but that doesn't mean that it's okay per se to just kind of roll with that and not think about the other side.
Yeah, and I can definitely empathize with that as well, because I, very, very strict on my nutrition, on my daily habits, on going to the gym and work and everything like that. And then the podcast, even, I'm incredibly disciplined. And, obviously over time, I'm going to have to start reducing the volume of podcasts I do. I can't consistently do three a week for
burn out, man.
Yeah.
Been there, done that.
Yeah. I mean, I still feel good doing these and I'm happy and I love talking to people, but now that people are starting to ask me to go on their shows, it's like, all right, well, so like literally this week, Monday was the only night where Sarah and I kind of got to like sit down and watch TV. Then Tuesday I had a podcast. Wednesday was band practice. Tonight I went on a podcast. I'm recording this one. Tomorrow my band plays a show. Saturday my band plays a show. Like when we start playing lots of shows and I'm looking at podcasts, like I'm all over the place all the time. And I work out 6 days a week, but I typically try to, like, on the weekend mornings, she'll sleep in till like 10 o'clock, right? I'm still up at 4:30 pretty much every single day, no matter what. So I get up and I still do my thing. So I try to get everything handled early in the morning. So that way it's like, okay, well, the rest of the day we can kind of spend together and kind of get stuff figured out that way. But yeah, I definitely empathize with being very, very, I don't want to say solipsistic, but very focused on yourself, because at least for me, I feel like I can't pour from an empty cup, right? I have to do all these things so that way I'm mentally sharp enough. So that way I'm, just ready to be available for whatever needs done for everybody else. Like if I don't do these things, then I'm not just on it,
I'd say I relate to that, but it sounds to me like some of your activities are more self-care, whereas mine are more I don't want to say self-destructive, but it's like I dig my own hole, I noticed this thing because during COVID, I've been pretty open about it, but like I went to see a therapist because things were getting pretty dark for me. And he pointed things out to me like, did you realize that you stay up really late on the weekends and you spend the entire week trying to catch up for that? Because at the end of the day, I'm like an escapist, where I will try and get away from the world and crawl into whatever I'm into just for a mental break. He was like, you're really making things tough for yourself because you stay up till like 1 or 2 on the weekends every weekend, and you still have to get up at 7 because that's when your kid gets up. So that's why you're so tired during the week, so it's things like that. And I've also realized about myself is that I'm someone that I have to exercise to be sane. And so, those are a few things where like, it's not necessarily constructive self-care things, but it's, in a lot of ways, my wife is the real hero behind Liberty Weekly and the stuff I've been doing. It'll be 6 years on Memorial Day that I've been doing this stuff. And she's the one who's she's shouldered the load of when I have something going on. She's the one who takes care of it on the back end with the family stuff. And there's lots of nights that she's sacrificed without me being there present. And in a lot of times, she takes a back seat to whatever I'm doing, and that's really not fair. But it's that she does that is why this exists. And I think there's something to be said, because there's people in the liberty community and the liberty movement who keep preaching all these things about, we've talked about it on your show, preaching these things about, having these traditional values and building wealth and doing all these things. And in a lot of ways, I just have to laugh, because if you're pouring enough hours into being on the internet, you're definitely not giving the attention to your family that you could be. And I know, because I'm not, but in a lot of ways it pisses me off, because if anything, I am the archetype of what the fuck they're talking about, because I have made my own business. I am raising, I'm raising my kids. I'm doing activism and I'm doing all these things too. And it's just, it's a little irritating to have that condescending kind of thing, from people without kids and stuff like that.
Yeah, no, I totally get that. And that's kind of why I try to phrase this as I'm trying to give people the tools to make themselves better, right? So I used to say I'm in the business of building better libertarians, but I'm like, no, because I can't do that, right? I have to give people the information and then they have to apply that information. Yeah. So, when I post videos of me deadlifting or doing any of the exercise stuff or diet or explaining how I'm consistent in doing stuff, it's typically of a place of, this is what I do, and this is what you may have to do to see results and to get where you want to go. So once again, I'm going to put out the information same way as you do, right? I mean, you put out all the anti-war stuff and write for the Libertarian Institute and do all the crazy research into the China stuff that nobody else is willing to do. And you're great at that. So it's like, once again, you should chase all the, the wealth, power, and influence. But I completely lost my train of thought. But
well, I mean, it's not like a dick measuring contest,
Right.
And the thing that pisses me off about it is just like, isn't there something in the Bible about like, not looking into other people's cups or anything like that? It's just the judgy nature of it, that you feel like better than other people what they should be doing with their time.
Yeah, there's definitely actually there's a big element of that there. And sometimes it's kind of like, it's a little necessary, because there are some people who like their lives are a wreck and they're trying to run like the Libertarian Party. It's like, well, why don't you just let that take a back seat, get your life together, whatever you need to do that, and then kind of go out and do your political activism. The only reason why I started the podcast now at this point is because, okay, I'm getting married, I have my own house, we have 4 cars between the two of us. Life is really good. I'm in the best shape of my entire life. So it's like, okay, now I feel like I'm in proper order to present myself to the public, right? I shouldn't be presenting myself to the public. If you would have seen me 3 years ago, 70 pounds heavier, I try not to say that I was depressed, but, having suicidal thoughts, digestive issues, and being miserable quite a bit at the time. I was in no shape to tell anybody what to do or to give people information. I wasn't in the place to do it. So now, 3-4 years later, I'm in a much better place and I'm much happier. So now I feel a little bit more able to kind of share this with other people. And so that's kind of where I feel like what they're saying is right, but you don't have to finger wag at people and tell them they're bad people for not doing the exact same thing as you, because maybe the Libertarian Party to some people is the best use of their time. Personally, for me at this time right now, it's not. Maybe in the future, but right now it's not. And that's okay. For other people, their priorities are going to be different. And that's okay too. Anybody who wants to do whatever form of activism they see fit, go do it. As long as it's kind of by libertarian values, then I support you.
Yeah. No, I totally agree. And it's like, the internet is a stupid place, man. And it's like, in a lot of ways, it's just a lot of like, so for instance, there was some drama going on Twitter involving, and I don't usually name drop, but like Top Lobster and Jack V. Lloyd, and it just seemed like it really devolved into this, and I have no opinion on either of them, that, I really don't care. I don't get involved with drama on the internet.
You're so much better off.
Yeah. And like I said, it just turns into this dick measuring contest about who's doing more. And to be fair, a lot of that seemed like it was coming from one side. But there's so much that goes on the internet. Like when I was when I was a kid growing up, and we were talking about our fathers earlier, my dad gave me good advice, and that was, don't say on the internet what you're not willing to say in person. And a lot of people get into trouble because they think that just because they can put text out there, that and there's so much that's misread and misinterpreted. Like if we were to get together in person, over 90% of the people who talk shit wouldn't talk shit.
Right.
And it would just be, there wouldn't be these misunderstandings, and a lot of us would probably be able to hash it out. But it's just nature of what this is. And so even when I was talking earlier about having this impression that people are judging what other people are doing, maybe that's just a convention of all this being on the internet, and it's so stupid. So like, I don't know, I just try to focus on what I can do,
Yeah, and I'm definitely not above I shouldn't say starting, but kind of jumping in on Twitter drama. But I try to keep it at, I never insult people personally, and I will never go after somebody unless they've really like gone out of their way to attack me. And typically, like if it even gets to that point, I'm typically blocking somebody by that point anyways, because I'm pretty patient and I'm pretty even keeled. But I try to never just go after people personally, just because I think that's so shitty. And I know I don't want people attacking me. It's not that I really like give a fuck, but it's just who I am. I'm not here to fucking sabotage people. I'm sure you and everybody else hopefully sees by almost 100 episodes of this fucking podcast now, I ask almost every single guest, hey, is there anything you don't want to talk about? Just because I'm not here to fucking sabotage people, dude. I want to have if I'm inviting you on, you're doing me a favor. And if we're talking on Twitter, typically I'm going to attack the ideas. I'm not going to attack the person. It's a cliche, but that's sincerely what I try to do, because I just, it doesn't feel good to fucking tear people down aimlessly. And it's like, okay, well, what did you gain from this Twitter argument? And the world shouldn't be revolved around Twitter. I see some people that are so fixated on followers, and I'm not above saying dumb shit to get followers or ask for more followers, but like some people are so hyper fixated on that. It's like, dude, go outside, go enjoy life. Like my Twitter and the podcast are just one facet of my life amongst many other things that are absolutely awesome. Like I said, I'm going to be playing 2 nights this weekend, which I'm super stoked for. My fiance and I go to awesome restaurants all the time, and that's like something that we just love doing, is go having good food and a good dining experience. That's what I fucking love to do. And, I think everybody else should have something like that. Don't let fucking Twitter be your whole fucking world, because that is a sad existence.
I really wish I didn't have this mentality that I have to be involved with Twitter to promote my own content, because if I could get rid of Twitter and I'd be a much better person, and I think my life would be a lot less stressful. On the other hand, man, like I'm going to Childeberg next weekend, not this one but the next one. We're leaving to go visit my my in-laws with the kids. We're leaving on Saturday, so 2 days after we're recording this here. Really excited about it, man. I would encourage everyone in the Liberty movement, if you have not gone to an in-person Liberty meetup, do it, because it is so fulfilling, and a lot of the bullshit that we're talking about here just kind of peels away. Because last year, I mean, it was a whole bunch of Liberty Twitter folks, and it was like, at the beginning, it was just a little awkward because people didn't know. You don't know anyone without their avatar or whatever. But then it's like, oh yeah, I mean, there's real people here on the other end.
Yeah, so like I went to the LPPA convention, and it's just really cool to finally meet a lot of the people that you like talk to online and hang out with people. And like you said, all the bullshit just peels away, and you could just be normal people. You go have a shot with somebody, and that's kind of my thing. Is people when I meet people, my go-to is, hey, let's do a shot of Crown, like on me. This is what we're doing. So and even like at live events. So I would love it, and I know this will probably never happen, but I'd love to have people that follow me on Twitter, people I talk to, come to one of the Rock for Life events, which are like these big outdoor festivals that my bass player and my drummer host. They're just a charity event, and anywhere from like 500 to over 1,000 people will show up sometimes. And it's just, you know, all day you listen to live music. There's vendors, there's food. It's just a good fucking time. And you know, as soon as I get there, of course, first thing I do is crack open the bottle of Crown, and everybody I know is getting a sip.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that sounds like a good time, man.
Oh,
It's like I'm so excited to be meeting these people. Like I got a chance to meet Keith Knight for the first time when he flew up to the Minneapolis the Minnesota LP convention.
yeah.
And Keith is one of my oldest friends, and I think it's great that we're both at the Institute together because you know, our little corner, Keith and me and Kyle actually have been podcasting together for a long time before the Institute took us on. And it's just funny that we all ended up there because, I mean, Keith has been one of my closest friends for 4 years now. I mean, a long time. And Kyle has been around the same time. And so it's just the level, it's so rewarding to get to meet them and to have this friendship that we've had for years, because on some level it's like this is not real, like it wasn't real life for a long time, you know. And it's really really rewarding. So I got to meet Keith, but all the Institute guys were all going to Freedom Fest in Vegas in July, and that should be a really fun experience.
Yeah, my God, if I wasn't getting married this year, I'd be going to way more events. But yeah, look, I've had so many people ask me to do so many different things, and I'm like, it's just not this year. And of course, I started my podcast 7 months ago, and now, you know, it's kind of picking up steam at a reasonable pace, and it's cool to be able to talk to everybody. But now they're like, oh man, you got to come to these places. Like, wow, this year perhaps isn't the best year, but definitely next year I'm going to be getting out and about, just because I'd love to hang out with everybody and finally meet everybody. I mean, I talk to Tommy Salmons almost like every single day. Same deal with Reed. You and me shoot the shit every here and there. But you know, I like sent Tommy my band's demos, right? Like we got 2 new songs back, and I'll send them over your way too if you want. And they're fucking
do it.
They're fucking killer. The one song we called Cry, we play it live. I'm actually going to stream our set tomorrow night onto my YouTube and everything. So I'll try to get it to Twitter and everywhere else. But it's like the heaviest song that our band does, and I wrote it, and it's so fucking good. And then we finally got it back. I'm like, oh dude, this sounds just fucking killer. And our singer's a chick, right? At the end, she has like this part where she just fucking belts it out, and we were laughing. We were saying that's like her tapping into like her inner black girl, but it sounds so fucking good. And the solo I put down for it, I'm really, really proud of. I think it sounds fucking killer. So yeah, I'm really excited for us to kind of get this new material out. And I would love it to be able to do this, the band, and like maybe take on personal training clients and not have to work on cars for a living. That would be like the dream. I don't think it's ever going to happen, but you know, I'll keep churning them out best of my ability.
Well, I've had a weird experience, man. And like I was talking about with earlier too, talking about living the principles that other people seem to preach. And it's like, I don't know those people's lives and stuff. And I don't give a shit. I don't judge people pretty harshly, but I've created the dream for myself in since December, you know, like, of course I'm in a special place where I have a law degree, and that allows me, it unlocks things for me that it doesn't for other people. But I have, for years, I was hoping and dreaming that I'd be able to make Liberty Stuff my full-time gig, because it's the only thing I've done in my life, man, where it's not work, where it's like, I mean, I could play video games for 6 hours, or I could work on Liberty Stuff, writing articles and shit for 6 hours. It's the same level of enjoyment. And starting my own firm, I can make the money that I was making working at other people's firms or at my other jobs in maybe half the time and effort. And I'm not going to say it's a cakewalk, because there's off hours stuff, and it's running a business. So it's not like, you know, so the stress level is the same, if not more, but it frees up my time and schedule to live on my own terms.
Mhm.
And so if I want to, you know, go to Freedom Fest for a week, or if I want to one afternoon pump out an article blasting Lindsey Graham, I can do that as long as I
Yeah.
serve my clients and take care of my shit. I can do that, and I make the money that I need to make. Now, does it help when people support my work and what I do? Yeah, it helps me justify taking that time and spending it not earning the money I could be earning.
Right.
But it really, I mean, it is for the first time my law degree has allowed me to live my life the way that I want. For the first time, what have I been saying? For the first time, my law degree is working for me, not the other way around.
Right. Yeah. Well, yeah, you might as well just call yourself a post-libertarian now. Jesus.
Well,
No, I'm kidding. But
no,
yeah,
and I mean, that's just like why, you know, and that's one of my bigger problems with conservatives is this tendency to be judgy. Not that that doesn't exist on the left, because it, you know, but yeah.
Yeah, dude. Well, that's like you said, you're pumping out what you want to pump out. You put out the articles you want to, and people support you for doing that. And you know, you were the only Substack I currently subscribe to and actually pay to, because I think what you do is that freaking great. We've been shooting shit for an hour, man. Jesus Christ, it fucking flew by. I kind of want.
I appreciate that, buddy. By the way, I do.
Dude, of course. Like I said, you're one of my favorite people in the liberty movement. You, Tommy, and Reed have been kind of like my first three that I kind of think of that I'd be like, yeah, if I could have a beer with any of those guys, like it would be probably you three. And you know, obviously there's plenty of other people that like I'd go hang out with too, but you know, you guys are like the first three to come to mind, just because me, you, and Tommy are like heavy metal guys, and Reed was the first guy to have me on his show and kind of help me get out there, and he's always been very supportive. So yeah, just like I said, you three guys are kind of the first three for me. What was it about the China stuff, and like what kind of got you into that? Like, why did you kind of start pulling on that string? Because I noticed Peter Schiff, funny enough, I listened to every single episode of his podcast. And I remember him talking about the trade deficit with China. And that was kind of like the first moment where I started raising my eyebrow. I'm like, we're hearing an awful lot about China, but I feel like there's more to this story that we're not being told. So did you kind of have a moment like that caused you to kind of dig deeper? And if so, what was it? And if not, then kind of like, how did you get there?
So it's really kind of an accident how I became, I guess, the guy. And I don't know if I'm the guy. Connor Freeman says that I'm the guy, at least in our corner of the movement, for the Uyghur stuff.
Yeah, well, Connor really knows his shit. So
Connor really, really knows his shit. And
yeah, it's fucking impressive.
If I could go on an aside and not answer your question immediately, for years, I don't know if I've said this other places, but for years in our group of podcasters, like circa 2017, we knew that Kyle Anzalone was going places. Like there were conversations that were had, not with Kyle being a part of it, but it's like, okay, this Kyle Anzalone kid, like he's serious about this shit. I mean, there's people that were doing it just as a fun hobby to shoot the shit and stuff like that, but it's like Kyle is serious about this. And I wanted to be serious too, you know, whatever. But Connor is another one of those people where it's like, oh, Connor's serious about this. Like, yeah. And I know that they're in Keith too, of course, but and I hate to leave people out, but it's like, yeah, these people are the real fucking deal. Like they are serious about this shit and they take it seriously. Not that other people don't, but to a different level. And Connor is one of those people, but it was talking to Dave DeCamp of antiwar.com. I think I had him on for an interview a while ago.
I think I remember watching one of them, but yeah, Dave's awesome too. He's just like, he comes off like a hippie to me, but he's like
one of my favorite people, dude.
See why?
Everything about, I mean, his aesthetic, man. And I'm just gonna gush about Dave for a while. My love letter to Dave DeCamp. Like, yeah, he just seems like, I mean, I've talked to him a few times. This great dude, man, and like his aesthetic is just awesome because to me it seems like kind of a DIY kind of punk kind of thing.
Yeah.
Um, um, and so I had him on June 21st of 2021.
Mm-hmm.
And I think I had him on before that, maybe. But back in February of 21, I realized that Tim Pool and Luke Rudkowski were parroting this State Department narrative about the Uyghur situation and really, really fear-mongering hard about China.
So real quick, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but
yeah.
Do you know kind of where they got that from? Because like the Uyghur thing at least came up on my radar, and I'm not like a big foreign policy guy. I know some stuff. I know more than your average person. In fact, I was actually owning I was arguing with a boomer con coworker today, and I don't talk politics at work, but like if you bring a thunder to me, you're gonna get fucking slapped. I will crush you if you want to have that conversation. But it like had came up on my radar, and then I kept hearing Tim Pool talk about it. I'm like, man, he has like such a fucking hard on for China. Like, what the fuck's going on? Do you know kind of where that started?
With Tim?
Yeah.
I don't know for sure. But with Luke, I can tell you, like, I have respect for Luke Rudkowski, and in a lot of ways, it made me kind of upset to see him stoke this narrative and to, in some ways, be a little bit more on it than Tim was. With Luke, I can only speculate, but I think it's a hatred for communism, and I think this is a line that libertarians walk that's really dangerous because it's what sets you apart from a regime change libertarian or like a good Misesian kind of I would do Daniel McAdams libertarian, because I think he's one of the embodiments of what it means to be a Ron Paulian. I mean, a Ron Paulian in foreign policy, but you'll find that there's a lot of libertarians out there, mainly in the Cato, not Cato so much because their foreign policy department is on point. But like the Students for Liberty sphere, kind of the left Koch sphere, excluding the Cato Institute, of what we would call regime change libertarians. And I think that some of them, they let their hatred for communism, in like Turning Point would be one thing. Like, and some of them are Zionists, you know. But they let their hatred of communism and socialism become this regime change operation where we need to promote libertarianism, libertarian universalism, where we spread liberty across the globe.
Right.
And you have to be very careful because like Luke went to Hong Kong during these protests that were connected to like the State Department. And you just have to be really careful with that kind of stuff. So in a long-winded roundabout way of answering your question, I think that's where, at least where it came from with Luke. And I don't really know with Tim. I mean, like, it's very speculative, but Tim, when he worked for Vice, he was on the ground with the Maidan during the Maidan revolution that had, at least was aided by the United States. And so I'm very suspicious of Luke, of Tim, although I can only speculate as to what his motives are. But let's just say it wouldn't surprise me if he had connections to the intelligence community.
Sure.
I'll leave it at that.
Right. Wow. Yeah, I kind of believe it. And I ran a joke the one day. I kept saying, because he kept getting swatted.
I think you froze again, man.
Oh my God. Let's see. It's going to be back in. We good? There we go. Yeah, it throws me. It literally, as soon as I come back, it says your internet connection is unstable. I'll have to edit that out.
Sorry, bro.
No, I did. You're good. You're good. It's this fucking internet. It's driving me up a wall. Tim Pool, I kept joking when he kept getting swatted that he's a Fed and his friends were just showing up early. But it's like a constant just circle jerk of MAGA and China hawkism. on Tim Pool. So I really think that's kind of where a lot of that, at least that pushed him there, because he claims to be a disaffected liberal, and this is what happens with people like him and Dave Rubin, is that they hate the left so much, so they decide, okay, well, whatever's the opposite of the left must be good. It's like, okay, well, is China hawking and then grifting for election fraud, that's the solution? Like, no, you can still be a good leftist, but you don't have to suck Donald Trump's dick in the process, right? But you were kind of tapping on when you had Dave DeCamp on, and that's kind of what got you interested in the China story before I got you going off down on the rabbit hole of our favorite person on the planet.
I've cooled it on the Tim Pool stuff lately. Anyways, yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, you said you had Dave DeCamp on, and you had noticed that they were kind of pushing the Uyghur genocide, and that's kind of what got you to start kind of digging in.
Well, Dave he gave a whole different dimension to it for me, because and in a lot of ways, our friends on the populist libertarian side, Dave provided the real counter argument that I've found in the Twitter engagements I've had with them that they failed to address and won't touch, which is, and I touched this in my article, Lou Rockwell was right about China, which is that they simply won't acknowledge that the United States has named China as being the enemy of the 21st century, that this is a stated policy, and that the actual that this is reflected in our policy, that there was something called the Asia pivot, right? And then in 2018, Trump began the Asia pivot in earnest, left over from the Obama administration, things I've talked about, ad nauseum, but that all these things exist. And that was the part for me that just didn't quite make sense, because, if you're saying, oh, well, we're not advocating a war with China, we just think that, we should be tougher on China, right? Because they're stealing our bacon. Well, look at what the policy is and has been for the last couple of years. Is that what you mean by being tough on China? And if it isn't what you mean by being tough on China, then you need to disavow it, and you need to do it loudly and attack people or criticize people who are advocating that policy, and instead propose your own measures that are different than that. And so when Dave provided that context to me, that's really what lit a fire under my ass to really see what we're facing, because the Cold War with Russia and China is upon us, and it's here.
Right.
So
yeah, and the funniest thing to me is that when you do any digging on China, you'll pretty much see like, holy shit, like, you think the US is a bubble, China is a 10 times bigger bubble. Like, they spend 300% of debt to GDP, right? They are running themselves rampant into the ground. They're building cities and demolishing them. Nobody lives in the cities.
Yeah.
Tons of agriculture still done by hand. Like, you guys really think, and they had the one child policy forever, so don't forget that. Do you really think these people are going to be loyal enough to their government to want to come over here and do anything to us? They hate their government more than we do, right? So, and the other thing is, if you claim to be a libertarian, but you're carrying water for the regime by stating all their talking points, I kind of question if you're really anti-state, or if you're just anti, something else, if you're target somewhere else. So this is why I've kind of said for a while now, once again, the right's not anti-war, they're just anti-specific wars, right? So now their focus is on China. And, you always say, yeah, no one's calling for war with China, but look at the policy. I've pointed out a couple times on Twitter, but Kathy Barnett, who's running for a Senate here in Pennsylvania, I think she lost. Literally on her website, she said, if China goes to take Taiwan, we will intervene. We will tell China, no, that we won't allow them to take Taiwan. It's like, what do you think they're going to do? Are they just going to say, okay, whatever, we're not going to have Taiwan? Like, you realize that could escalate fast, and we don't know what that looks like when it goes south. Like, that is a big deal. You can't just say, we're going to stop another country from doing something. I understand, respect the sovereignty of Taiwan, whatever, but are you willing to go over there and die? I'm not.
Right. And it is kind of like a rock and a hard place, because of course I support secessionist movements, but but the United States as a country has no place saying that Taiwan is not part of China. I mean, it's just none of our fucking business. And so if you're gonna sit here and say, well, no one wants to have war with China, if that's the measure, then even John Bolton doesn't want war with China. Because he said in an interview that, well, now do I think that we should go to kinetic conflict with China? No. At least not right now, I guess. But.
Yeah. Should we go to war with China? No. But like, if we fired bullets their way and sailed warships through there and we're flying over there and cut off all trade and stop them from doing anything that they plan to do, then we should do all that. But war, no, war's off the table. But everything else, we could talk about that.
Yeah, and Dave actually had a great piece talking about, and I can't remember exactly, a couple weeks ago maybe, talking about the lessons from Ukraine as applied to Taiwan. Because
I'll have to look at that.
Yeah, in many ways, it's kind of a parallel situation. It's like how much can you go in and support? I mean, like the allegory is right there. Taiwan to Ukraine. There's so many similarities with the U.S. policy towards the two entities, shall I say?
Yeah, I think this is a concern going forward, and we covered this on the last show that you did with Angela. The midterms could prove really ugly for the. Okay, cool. Yeah, I'll make sure I put that in the description.
Yeah, sorry, I put the link. The article's called "The Lesson from Ukraine: China's Red Lines on Taiwan Shouldn't Be Ignored." Dave DeCamp, May 2nd. So
okay, yeah, I will make sure I share that, and I'm going to read that myself as well. But if we're going to have this red sweep, which I think it's going to happen, but I don't think it's as guaranteed as everybody thinks. I feel like there's going to be some fucky shit, and plus with the whole abortion debate going on right now, that's like a big wedge issue for some people, and some people just will not move on that. It's not, like I said, a 100% guaranteed thing, and we're going to a lot of these Republicans fucking hate China, and they will do anything to stoke the flames there. And once again, we're not calling for war with China. Okay, well, what's your end goal? What are you willing to do to be tough on China? What you need to lay that out, because once again, all the stuff we're doing right now, it doesn't look good. And especially when we're already, poking the bear when it comes to Ukraine and Russia. Should we really try to poke the bear, on the other side as well? Two nuclear powers. Eventually, we just got to accept, hey, we're not the global empire anymore. There's going to be somebody else that's kind of, a higher power too, but they're in worse shape than us. Should we really be concerned? I get it that, they have a lot of Hollywood and everybody bought off, but for how long? Yeah,
and I just finished reading Ted Carpenter of the Cato Institute. He had a book called NATO, The Dangerous Dinosaur. I think I tweeted some pictures of that on Twitter anyways, but he was saying that it seemed, and he wrote this in like 2019, so right before COVID, and he was saying that it seems like NATO has come to a bit of an impasse where the old Europe wants less U.S. involvement in NATO. And it seemed like NATO was really coming to kind of a crisis point where you have people like Donald Trump going out and saying that NATO is obsolete. We want to get out of NATO, these kind of things. But then at the same time, Vice President Mike Pence is going around to the Eastern European nations saying, absolutely, we are committed to NATO. Article 5 is a big deal for us. Those kind of things, saying that we would militarily support the Eastern countries. And you had a lot of rhetoric from, I can't remember I think it was Gates. I think he was, I can't remember his first name, but General Gates. He was big up in the military. And he was saying that basically that NATO members need to start pulling their own weight, is that we're basically de facto providing security guarantees for all of Europe, and the United States is the force doing that. The US basically is NATO. And it makes me wonder why the Ukraine crisis came at the time that it did. And I'm not saying that there's any kind of conspiracy connection behind it, but it's curious that the Ukraine crisis comes to a head when people in the foreign policy community and in Ted Carpenter is in the Council on Foreign Relations. He's a member of it, so he knows what the foreign policy establishment is thinking. He sees that NATO is coming to some kind of a head situation, and so, but I also wrote a piece about how I think it's that Washington is daydreaming if they think that they can put a stopper in the NATO situation with Ukraine, and then at the same time still have their policy of enveloping China on the other side and going after China for the 21st century. So it seems to me that their psychology is that, oh, well, we can defeat Putin's Ukraine in the short term, or at least start an insurgency there and, encircle China at the same time, when we can already see that the stockpiles that the United States has are being depleted because we're sending so much to Ukraine. So I'm just so skeptical, and I think that they're kidding themselves if they think they can, do both at the same time.
Yeah, and I think it's absolutely true, and especially $30 trillion in debt, and then if you measure it correctly, double-digit inflation, and we're supposed to believe that we're going to be able to handle two other superpowers, if you want to call them that. I don't know that I could really call them that, but
I can't remember what the NDS calls them, emerging powers. And then don't forget the rogue regimes, Kyle, Iran and North Korea. And the North Korea situation is coming to a head too, because they're testing new nuclear missiles or new nuclear devices. Or they're threatening to. And then there was a piece in antiwar.com the other day talking about North Korea is being hit with COVID right now. And who knows what the hell is going to happen there, because they're doing a legit eternal shutdown. I don't know how much of that is true, but it seems like they're doing this kind of lockdown. And so I don't know how much of it is propaganda, but if it's coming from antiwar.com and they're saying that, the country is very food insecure the way it is right now. And if they are being hit with COVID and they're doing totalitarian things, who knows what instability is going to be there and in what level China is going to help them with that.
Yeah, who the fuck knows, dude? It's 2022 is definitely fucking interesting. As far as Iran goes, it seems like they're kind of quiet on that. Like, Trump was bad in Iran, although he could have been a lot worse. It doesn't seem like anybody really cares about Iran, because we've heard for fucking 30 years. The Friedman unit was originally coined as a term because they kept saying Iran's, so many months away from having a nuclear weapon. But it seems like just that whole deal's kind of died down.
Yeah, in some ways, Iran is kind of a blind spot for me. One of the things is like the Israel-Palestine situation. I haven't spent a whole lot of time studying. Iran is not something I've spent a lot of time studying, aside from the Iraq-Iran war in the 80s. So in listening to what Connor and Kyle have done in terms of the work, it seems like the U.S. returning to the Iran deal is not something that's going to happen. And I think that it could very well happen, but it seems like there's been, hiccup after hiccup after things like that. So, yeah, your guess is as good as mine on that one.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that was kind of the last thing I remember hearing. I can't remember. I think it might have been that show with you and Connor where you guys might have briefly touched on the Iran deal, because Trump left that, what was it, 2018?
Yeah, I think so. I wrote an article about it that I'm going to be putting in the book I'm working on.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, and that I remember Scott Horton talking about it when I was first trying to kind of learn about Iran. And he and Scott fashioned, that was the only good thing that Obama did in his entire presidency. He can do his victory lap, and other than that, he could shop about it. And yeah, that was
I had to see what Justin Raimondo thought about it when I was working on that article, because towards the end of his life, Justin was someone who was kind of a fan of Trump in a certain way, although Justin did criticize him for a lot of the things that he had done. But it seemed like you remember those libertarians back in the Trump years who kind of got on the Trump train a little bit. I think that Walter Block was one of them.
Yeah.
Do you remember that? I think Justin was a big one too.
Yeah, I kind of wonder, and I've pondered this before, and I haven't read any like Murray Rothbard's work, but I wonder what like some of the great libertarian thinkers would think about like 2020 and Trump. And I feel like every libertarian you ask, they're going to put their bias behind it. Like if you ask the paleos, they're going to say, oh, he'd be all for Trump. And then if you ask all the LP guys, they're going to say, oh, he wouldn't like Trump. Like, I feel like everybody would just have some kind of inherent bias in the way they're going to portray that. But it just kind of makes you wonder, how would all the figures that kind of build our movement, how would they look at everything that's gone on, especially over the last 2.5 years?
I've often wondered what Justin would have thought about the post-libertarians.
Mm-hmm.
And I've gone back and kind of scoured some of his speeches to see what he would have thought, because Justin was a gay man, and I guess for the audience who doesn't know, Justin Raimondo, a big writer at antiwar.com, wrote several books. One of them was a biography of Murray Rothbard called Enemy of the State. A prolific anti-war writer and a gay rights activist, because he was a gay man living in San Francisco. So, but he was a hardcore right winger, and kind of a crotchety guy at the same time. So I did an episode with Scott kind of talking about Justin, because I am the Justin Raimondo Fellow at Libertarian Institute. And I was very honored to take that title, and I never would have assumed it for myself if not for the fact that it was Scott's idea to call me that. And I would say that I'm not worthy of that title if not for Scott recommending it in the first place. So to be clear about that, but as a guiding star, I try to figure out what Justin would have thought about this, because being a right winger, a crotchety right winger, but also being a gay rights activist, I think he would have been called the Lulbert. I do. Because he had a debate about whether or not gays should have about gay marriage, and his answer was, well, the state shouldn't be involved with marriage. And that's the Libertarian answer, right? I mean,
yeah, and I have a lot of sympathy for their arguments, but at the same time, it's such short-term thinking, and I just can't get with it. And so, like, there was a poll that I don't know if you follow the Cajun Libertarian, Noel Lind. He put up a poll and asked who was the worst: Biden, Trump, Obama, Bush. And overwhelmingly, people picked Biden. And I was kind of surprised by that, but then again, also not surprised. But it's like, okay, well, you can look at Biden and say he's horrible, and yes, I agree. But where did all this start? Where did the NSA start? Where did the war on terror start?
Yeah.
Where did all the spying start?
I was trying to think, would I pick Bush or Obama? Because
Obama just really hit the gas pedal. Yeah. That's the thing, is that Obama definitely escalated, and not that I think that there wouldn't have been a lot of that stuff if not for Bush, but it's like he really started everything. Like even some of the stuff with the vaccine passports, they're using some of the policies put in through the NSA to, verify vaccine passports. So it's literally like a majority of this stuff started with George Bush. And people just, they're too focused on the right now to think back to the root cause issue. And yeah, you can gain some wins in the short term, but I really think it has to be, you have to go to the root of the issue and fix that before you try and just do little reactionary stuff, because you'll be playing whack-a-mole for the rest of your life, and that's not a game I want to play.
It's so funny, because it's like, well, how far back do you want to go? Because if we want to get to the whole, like, the root of how the terrible NATO confrontationalism, well, then maybe you go back to the Clinton years in Kosovo, because Ted Carpenter he makes the distinction that, okay, well, NATO didn't become an offensive alliance until Kosovo and Bosnia. So you want to go back to the 90s at that point in time. Okay, well, all right. Well, do you want to go back to further back to the United States' terrible Middle East policy? Then you go to Jimmy Carter, and you read like Andrew Bacevich, the America's War for the Greater Middle East. Okay. Well, you want to go further back, it's that kind of situation.
Yeah. It was just in that poll they asked about 4, but yeah,
I'm sorry, I'm getting autistic.
Oh no, you're good because honestly, once it gets kind of past Bush, I'll be completely honest. I'm not that well read, and I know a little bit here and there, but yeah, dude, listen, I know how to work on cars. I know a shitload about building muscle and nutrition. I know some stuff about libertarianism. I don't sit here and read this stuff. I know some stuff about foreign policy. I dabble in a lot of stuff, but like I kind of put my flag in the ground on the nutrition and training and the automotive stuff. That's like where I know the most. Other than that, I'll be honest, a lot of stuff I have like a cursory knowledge of, not even cursory, but I just, where do you start? Where do you end? Like, where do you learn all this stuff? And I know read anti-war every day, but
yeah.
It's like how far do you have to dig?
I feel kind of bad because it's like I like in that interview, my last episode with Connor Freeman, and you alluded to that, we were talking about, and sometimes I kind of like I come off as an elitist because I shame people sometimes, and I feel bad about it, and I just kind of like think about it later about should I have said that or should I not have, but really I guess my biggest thing is just that people in years ago, I would think about years ago how I would shame people for, it's like, okay, well, you can't just look at memes, you have to actually read fucking something, and I would be someone who would be saying that in maybe 2018, 2019, like because at that point in time, the radical libertarian movement was rapidly expanding with its own like internet culture. I mean, there were fucking Hoppians with fucking anime memes coming out of everywhere, and it was like, okay, well, you learned this from memes. It's like, you can't just do that. You gotta read the shit, man.
Right.
And then now it's just evolved to a point where it's like, okay, well, you gotta actually like read stuff about history and to say, to have some kind of principled opposition to the wars, because you got to be able to explain, like, if you meet anyone who actually knows about this, they have talking points to combat your talking points. And the only way you can really undermine that is to know exactly what you're talking about. And I don't know exactly where I was going with that, but I feel self-conscious about shaming people for it, because it's like, I know how it is. You got 24 hours in a day, and there's kids that are screaming and hitting each other and shitting on the floor,
Yeah, dude, like I said, it's just a fucking deep dive, and I should be more well informed, but it's like, holy fuck, another one on the list. And then I want to make sure I'm prepared for podcasts, so I listen to just about everybody's show before I have them on. It's someone like you or Tommy or Reed, I shoot the shit with you guys all the time, so we're good to go typically. But although I did listen to your show with Tommy this morning, and then your show with Connor earlier this week, just because I wanted to listen to him. But it's like I try to stay prepared and on top of things at all times. So it's like, okay, well, when am I eventually going to be able to sit down and listen to a thorough history of war stuff? And I know probably get enough already or something like that to just get a little bit better of a history on it, or one of Scott's books or someone's, and just read more articles. But it's like, man, that's just like so much. Like I feel like I'm staring at a mountain of information to consume and learn and memorize.
Well, I mean, if it makes you feel any better, or if it makes me seem like maybe more of a hypocrite but less of an asshole, this entire shelf right here, those are all books that I bought as research to write the book that I really want to write.
Mm-hmm.
And none of them have been read. This shelf right here. Maybe this book I read. Anyways, yeah. A lot of those books haven't been read yet because I just don't have time. But it's funny, in the libertarian community and in the movement, it's like the size of your bookshelf is like a dick measurement. So it's like I had to get a big bookshelf to fit all of my Liberty books and then put them in the background.
Yeah, you know what, my background, and I'm fortunate because I realize I'm just the fucking dude trying to push fitness in the fucking in the sphere.
Yeah.
Um, my dick measuring contest is just the guitars.
Yeah,
You
well,
know,
you're beating me, dude. I got 3 serviceable ones that are actually nice.
yeah. So I got those three over there, one right there, and then obviously all the ones right to the right there. And I got one in the bag, the one I'm going to be playing this weekend. So yeah, I would like to have more, but yeah, they're just it's not in the books right now.
Yeah.
All
I
right,
feel you,
dude.
man.
Yeah, I guess we should probably close out. We've been shooting the shit for an hour and a half, and this was
Yeah.
a pretty cool talk, and especially because we didn't just talk libertarianism the entire time, so it's kind of nice to take that break.
Yeah, it
y-
is. It is.
yeah, dude. Where can everybody find you, and what do you got going on in the near future?
Yeah, well, libertyweekly.net. You can find me there. You can find me at libertarianinstitute.org. Um, right now I'm switching from Substack to my Ghost platform and the URL for that is libertyweekly.club. And so that's how I'm doing all of my support stuff. People who are currently subscribed there's going to be no change for you, but it's an infrastructure that I actually own and have a lot more control over. That's less cancelable. I'm working on releasing my first book, which will be an ebook. And I'm going to Childerberg, and then I have like 4 days after that when I get home where my kids and wife will not be home yet, that I'm hoping to finish writing my book and get that off to the editor guy. But I also have a jury, like a trial that I'm doing on the 14th of June. So anyways, that's what my project is that I'm working on right now, is getting my first ebook done that I'll be giving away to email list subscribers, and supporting listeners will get like a physical copy signed by me, but it'll be a limited release kind of thing. So I'm really looking forward to that. I just need time to finish it.
Oh, dude. Yeah, I definitely feel that. I got
Yeah.
so much shit going on at all times. Like, okay, well, when can I do this? When
Yep.
can I do that? Yeah. You know, dude. All right.
Yeah.
Well, thanks for coming on, dude. This your third time, and finally, me and you got to shoot the shit, and I'm glad we got to hit most of the music stuff that I kind of wanted to hit on too.
Yeah.
So,
That's
yeah, I think
fun.
yeah, I think everybody will enjoy this. Like I said, the first hour is pretty much just shooting the shit about stuff that's not libertarianism. So, yeah, dude. Thanks for coming on, and until next time, everybody, take care.